This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z. I'm Matt Fanslow, and you know what? You give away free hot dogs and put up an inflatable gorilla, stuff's going to go down. That and more after we hear a word from our sponsor, Napa Autotech Training. So, are you looking for the right training provider that offers cutting-edge courses to hone your automotive skills? Well, let Napa Autotech take you to the next level. Go to napaautotech.com for more details about classes near you. I'm going back to the mailbag because this question is just too good. It's too good to ignore. A lot more layered than I thought it would be. I'll leave names out of it to protect the innocent and maybe even the guilty. Essentially, the question is, I'm going to leave my job, not me, the person writing, and I haven't wrote myself a question yet. Should I put in a 2 weeks notice? It's a really short question. My knee-jerk reaction was, yeah, right? That's what we're supposed to do. And then I thought about it a while. I don't know that the knee-jerk reaction is quite as strong as it started out. So there's more to it. What I don't like about the whole thing, not about the notice that this person's asking about or that they're going to be leaving their job, but that we're talking kind of a power dynamic here. And that's one thing not talked about often enough. And you've probably heard me say it. It's really a subject that should be taught, I don't know, probably kindergarten on, all the way through as far into school as you can possibly go. And then even in common conversations, we should be talking about power and power dynamics. A lot of the worst things humans have ever done to each other is due to power dynamics. And do I put in 2 weeks notice as up there with some of the worst? No, not really. But I get to thinking about it. As an employee, we're expected. So there's a dangerous word, expected. This is where it really becomes a hang-up. We're expected as a common courtesy to put in a 2 weeks notice. Common courtesy. I'm not sure what the common part is. What's in common? Could it be? Yes. But how many of us work for a business? And I don't even care if it's automotive related. How many of us work in a business or a profession or an industry that the employer gives you a notice of termination? I know it exists. It absolutely does. But how many of you have ever heard about a repair shop that pulled a tech, or it doesn't have to be a tech, any employee aside and said, look, whatever the scenario is, we're parting ways. Let's just assume it's not like an egregious event or action by the employee. I would think amongst us, there are things we would all agree on are grounds for immediate dismissal with no notice. Really no acts of like amenities or niceties, like the business really not going out of its way to take care of the offender. And I think we could leave that fairly vague. I think for the most part, we agree there's just people that gots to go. But what I'm talking about is things aren't working out. You've been around maybe for a while, a few years, and maybe you've been written up and maybe you haven't. But the reality is that you're probably we're going to be going in a different direction type of conversation or lecture, or in some cases, it almost seems like a backpedal. But regardless, management has decided that you're parting ways. And there are absolutely situations where they send you off with some sort of package, if you will. And I don't mean like a gift, but some sort of severance, something that makes up for that. Maybe it's a week pay. Maybe it's a couple weeks pay. You want 2 weeks notice? We also give 2 weeks severance, or maybe severance based on years served, something like that, where now that balance is starting to become fairly equal or more equal. Maybe it also continues to balance. Maybe it continues to balance in that the longer you're there, the more ingrained into the business you are, the more important you are to the day-to-day operations that the more severance you get, but then the more, I'm going to use that word expected again, to put in a longer notice. That maybe if you've been there for 10 years and they offer 4 weeks of severance pay, they would expect 4 weeks of notice to help train in somebody new, to help give them time to find someone to succeed you or replace you. I don't know many places that do that. And off the cuff, I don't know any shops. I've never even heard about it. Maybe they do it and they just don't talk about it because they never felt a reason to talk about it. But it is something to consider, because otherwise, if you're putting in your notice and it's a 2-week notice, that's considered the minimum, you're doing it strategically and not because it's the moral right thing to do. That's what kind of sucks about it. The courtesy part is removed. It has nothing to do with courtesy. You're not doing the employer a solid by doing this. That's the way it should be. But that's a lot of times that's not what it is. It gets back to kind of what Brian Pollock and I were talking about a couple episodes ago, where you have people, not just owners, not just managers, people that hold grudges, want revenge, do things in a vengeful manner. Where I'm going with that is there is no severance package. You're just expected to give 2 weeks notice. You have no intentions of ever going back to this shop ever again. You want out. But if you don't put in that notice and wherever you leave to go to isn't so great, or who cares what happens? It's not working out. Your fault, their fault, nobody's fault. Don't matter. Things aren't working out. Horrible things happen that the business just has to close, whatever. Now you're looking for another job. Either A, you cannot put that shop or manager on as a reference. Why? Because it won't matter if you were a terrific employee, because you left without giving notice, even though there was no type of severance package to balance it out. You will be punished. And they can't talk bad about you on the record if the shop or the business or whoever, employee, potential employer, asks, would you hire this person again? And they answer no. Even if they really would have. In the back of their head, they're like, if they had to put notice in, I would have hired him in a heartbeat. Now you're doing it to play a freaking game. And that I struggle with. Because now is putting the notice in really the right thing to do? And I think we all want to say yes. I think in our guts, we want to say, yeah, it's the right thing to do. And yet, a similar courtesy is not extended to us. It's not really to just go off on managers and management. It's something to think about. I expect, if not demand, that you put in this notice. If you don't, forget about coming back here. Forget about me saying anything nice about you, even if there's every reason to give a good reference, save for you didn't put in the notice. And maybe, yeah, you put them in a bad spot, but we don't know the details of the breakdown. Why are you leaving? What's going on? We need details. But even then, it's just, I don't know, it's interesting to think about. Or I guess I'm interested in thinking about it. I find it a little bit hypocritical. And it takes away from my idea of employer-employee situations, relationships, whatever, being symbiotic. That everybody has a role to play and a duty to help either grow or maintain the business profit margins or profit levels. Margins probably not so important, but the actual profit levels. And for that, you're paid what you're paid or compensated to whatever you've agreed to be compensated for. It starts taking away from that. It's no longer as symbiotic. Napa Autotech training sessions are being conducted day and night in a town near you. This training caters to every level within your organization, be it a mechanical assistant, a mechanical specialist, a technology specialist, or a driver safety calibration specialist. Imagine a one-stop shop training partner in Napa Autotech that will lead your team to a path to greatness. Autotech's entry-level Build-A-Tech classes convert the untapped potential of your new hires into money-making mechanical specialists. Autotech's higher-level tech update classes introduce specialists to the world of ever-changing technologies, which prevents your shop from getting technologically stagnant. Remember, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. And, turning to the front of the store, the Autotech Service Advisor class is an awesome way to hone your client advocate skill set, ultimately benefiting the customer through an improved vehicle repair experience. But it doesn't stop there. Imagine an electric vehicle class that takes your specialist well past the mundane, yet necessary safety topics. Well, it's here. Autotech's EV Ready training is a week-long curriculum that takes participants through a hands-on experience involving hybrids and electric vehicles. The session kicks off with the use of PPE and proper tooling while touching on required OSHA regulations. Then, the students dive into the lab vehicles to gain knowledge of the common high-voltage components on EV and hybrid vehicles and their function. Attendees will be taken on a path exposing them to different electric vehicle manufacturers to compare component form and location. Additionally, information about Level 1 and Level 2 charging systems will be included, along with a quick look at DC to DC charging. The operation and maintenance of subsystems are explored, including the different modes of Tesla operations, and so much more. So what are you waiting for? Commit to taking your business to the next level with Napa Autotech training. I think years ago, and this is probably many years ago, somebody could call up for references. The person on the other end of the phone could just be honest, good, bad, or otherwise. Here's the good, here's the bad. And maybe they still can, and we think they can't. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure in this litigious society, you can't necessarily be honest anymore. At least you can't be critical, even if it's true. So the worst thing anyone can say on one of those references, as far as I know, and maybe it varies by state to state, and maybe this is completely wrong, and you can be 100% honest. As long as it's honest. I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's been a while that the worst thing anybody can say is that to answer, would you hire this person again? And you say no. That sends a very strong message versus in a heartbeat. So the ultimate answer is, do you put in a notice? Yes. Why? Playing the game. You're playing a strategic game to not only protect this next job, but the one after that potentially, and even the one after that. And I don't like it. I think, or feel, we got to use our I feel statements. I feel rather strongly that as employers, as management, have to start considering that severance packages. And they wouldn't have to be just stuff like you see in industries or professions, like you would think attorneys and maybe doctors, but it could be enough to help somebody where you just don't want them at the shop anymore, or they put in their notice and you're just like, we'll just call this your last day, but here's this severance package. And I know some employers, that's how that works. There is no notice. They want you to put the notice in, but then you're immediately done. With that, you would hope that there's something, because it does work both ways, right? If you're leaving somewhere and they do something like that for you, not so much like, let's call today your last day and GTFO and here's a check. That wouldn't be so bad. That's better than just GTFO and nothing. But I'd like the idea of putting in a notice and then having that offer there of, we can call today your last day. Here's your week, 2 weeks, whatever, off you go. Or on top of that, it's like you can work your 2 weeks and here's your 2 weeks severance as well. Just think about that. If a shop did that for you, something happens, whatever happens, think again about going back, like thinking again in a good way. It's amazing how far, like, again, referencing the conversation with Brian Pollock again, once you get up to a certain amount of money where you can afford to pay your bills and a little extra, or afford to live the way you want to live. And most people I know, other than Bryn Klein, want to live rather modestly. That's why Brent owns his own shop. And ask the guys, his house is bigger than his shop. It's insane. He's living it up. Down in Florida. Yeah, he's just got it made. Okay, none of that's true. He's a really good guy. Part of the reason I hate him. I'll have to have him on and explain why I hate him. I wonder if he offers severance packages. I'll have to ask him when I have him on. Seriously, though, so nobody gets the wrong idea. I consider Brent a really good friend of mine. So I don't know if he considers me a friend, but I love the guy to death. But just thinking about evening out that playing field. So ultimately, the answer is put the notice in. Perfect world, you're putting it in because you want to. That you do want to not burn any bridges, keep the relationship peaceful, cordial, and all that. Also, we just have to play the game. If we didn't have that desire, whatever that is, to seek vengeance, to make people pay for doing things outside of our own social constructs, referencing the social construct episode. But when people deviate from our expectations, which is created by our own idea of how the world should work, we get more emotionally invested than we probably should, when we could have just stepped back and said, I wonder what it's like from their perspective. And it would have to pop into your head. Like, if I wanted to let them go tomorrow, I could just pull them in the office and let them go. And they get a final paycheck. And maybe we do have a policy where we pay out any leftover PTO. But if it's PTO that's accrued through hours worked, that's almost like a strategy leveraged against us too, where, the shop I work at, and I'm not saying this is the right way to do it, just an example. For me, my start date after about the first of the year, second of the year, was my first day working, was the day after the New Year's. My vacation time resets and I get my X amount of hours or days. I'm working up to months, plural. I don't know if I'll ever get there. I get treated well. It's not a dig. I'm kidding. My vacation time resets. I have all of it available to me right away. So if I used it up, I won't have to start working until July. I wish. Others, you accrue it for every hour worked. You can maybe borrow against it, where now you go into the negative and you have to earn it back. And I guess that works too. But it's a self-protection thing. Whereas potentially mine, if I quit early on in the year, and we do have a policy that would pay me all my vacation time, they could be on the hook for a fair bit of money. But that could be viewed somewhat as a severance, right? So there's ways to twist this all to either side's benefit. And I think that's what I dislike. The twisting and manipulating of the situation or the benefits to either side, by either side. No kidding. It's human behavior to do what benefits you the most, right? Whatever that is, benefits you professionally or gives you the dopamine rush, whatever. It's human nature, but also we're supposed to be aware enough and intelligent enough to recognize some of that and kick in a little bit of altruism, kick in a little bit of humility. And I guess that's forever going to be an ongoing topic on the Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z podcast. Matt talking about being honest, being humble, having some humility, having some grace, thinking about power and power dynamics, using statistics. That's going to be an ongoing thing because I feel very, very strongly that's the truth of the matter. And you just like everybody to come to the table in good faith. And it's not always the case. And the really crappy part is sometimes you're going to be the one coming to the table in good faith and the other person isn't. That's when it really sucks. So I've taken up a few minutes here to go on and on about ultimately put in a notice. But also, I think it would just be a good topic to bring up. And we should be able to have open dialogues about certain things. And I think it's not unreasonable to bring this up where, hey, I have no intentions of quitting this. I love it here, but I was just thinking about this. You presumably expect us to put in a notice, and yet you have the ability to let us go with no notice. How is that handled? If you say the word severance, it could ruffle feathers, but I think that's the right word. I think technically that's the right word. What is the harm in just discussing it instead of everyone getting all emotional about it and freaking revved up? Just think about it. And if you don't know what the word means, go look it up and think about it and go, they got a point. Or they don't have a point, because this is what we do. If there's any vacation time or up to this amount of vacation time, we pay it to you. And that's worth X amount of days or weeks or whatever. There's a plan. Or you bring up an interesting point. Heaven forbid somebody bring up a freaking good point and you'd have to go think about it and go, what do you guys think? Perfect world, what would you like to see happen? Okay, that's a little too... I was thinking more of this. What do you think of that? Something's better than nothing. Come to a compromise. It's not always a government word. So with that, I'll let you guys think about this and let me know what you think. Fire me an email, mattfanslowpodcast@gmail.com. If you have ideas, and it seems like you guys do, keep firing them away. Looking to hopefully have Justin Morgan, to do another live Q&A type thing. And probably after bagging on Mr. Klein, I should have him on too. So yeah, fire the questions or comments about this episode or other episodes, ideas for episodes. If you want to be on the podcast, please let me know. Thank you to Napa Auto Tech Training for sponsoring, and thank you to the Aftermarket Radio Network for giving me the platform. So until next time, take care.
You've been listening to Matt Fanslow, diagnosing the aftermarket A to Z on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Matt on your favorite listening app. He's very interested in what you have to say. Let him know what you'd like him to cover and come on the show. Matt is all for advancing the aftermarket. Find Matt Fanslow on social media and connect, or on aftermarketradionetwork.com.